Officials are confirming to Fox that this is happening on Miramar, that Air Force base down there, the Marine Corps Air Station base. Reports of this crash started coming in around 10 o'clock this morning. It is believed to be an F-35.
Now, the pilot safely ejected. No word on a cause of the crash. Hamas has confirmed it will disarm as part of a newly announced Gaza peace deal. President Trump praising the agreement.
President Trump really underscoring the importance of this agreement with Hamas to disarm in Gaza, really saying it's basically a historic move and how difficult, unprecedented it's been to achieve. President Trump also saying that Israel is on board with the move.
Fox's Steve Harrigan. America's listening to Fox News.
Your pet is missing. That sudden panic, the racing questions, the worry of what could happen. It's overwhelming. Petco Love Lost is here to help. This free, nonprofit-powered service uses photo matching technology to search the largest national lost and found pet database, including pets from shelters, neighbors, and social media, helping bring pets back to the people who love them. And it works. Every day, Petco Love Lost reunites pets with their families. A reunion happens every 4 minutes. Simply upload a photo of your lost pet or one you found, and Petco Love Lost's photo matching technology goes to work instantly. You can even register your pet in advance, so if the unthinkable happens, reporting them lost and helping bring them home is as easy as the click of a button. Every pet deserves a way home. Visit PetcoLoveLost.org to register your pet or upload a photo and search for a lost or found pet today.
As a parent, you said you'd never give up the convertible.
Look, the van even has its own backing.
You said you'd never schedule your life around a stuffed animal.
Nobody panic. Bun Bun is still at daycare.
And never put them in harm's way.
I'll be right back, little man. Just gonna pop in the store for diapers.
But never happens. Temperatures as low as 60 degrees can be deadly for children left behind. So always bring them with you every time you park the car. Stop, look, lock. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
America 250 is a great time to reflect on our country's past, present, and insane savings. BTRN's InsaneRadioDeals.com is celebrating 250 years of America with 25.0% off of everything. This includes savings on great local experiences and services like Aquatrek Adventures scuba classes and Concord Mechanical home maintenance services. The InsaneRadioDeals.com America 250 sale, 25.0% off of our entire inventory. Now until August 1st, you will not want to miss it.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, and asking your smart speaker, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane and JJ Hendrickson.
Mutually agreed to part ways. That's right. We love that euphemism as we mention it once again to start the fast lane. Mutually agreeing to part ways with the quotations for those watching at Fastlane, Ed Lane, and BTRN Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube. But JJ, I actually think there might be some mutuality to the Mike Young contract revision with Virginia Tech. A little more money, but the buyout is easier to navigate after this season wraps up, which I honestly think there could legitimately be a mutual decision on both parties for this. Am I off base in thinking that? Because if Tech struggles again and doesn't really come close to having an NCAA tournament caliber team, I get it, they're expanding the field. A lot of teams that are mediocre could get in, claim they made the tournament, but it doesn't mean what it used to because now it's like going to a bowl game. Anybody can do it. Standard might be a little higher. But Mike Young also looks like the type of coach where at times, I love him. I really appreciate his candidness. I think he's a genuine guy, but he almost looks like he's burned out at times from just how much intensity and effort it takes to build a competitive roster. And Virginia Tech, let's be real, pumping all their resources into football, which they should, means it's going to be harder to be competitive in all the big revenue generating sports unless you have endowments like the Soifer family from Lynchburg for Virginia Tech, cross country and track and field, or softball or wrestling. Those programs, it becomes hard So if it's a bad year this year, I can legitimately see a scenario where Mike Young is like, I'm just tired of this. I'm ready to go. And Virginia Tech will also be ready for a change where this contract makes that more feasible. And therefore, it legitimately could be not the euphemism where we make fun of it, but this could actually be a situation where there is a mutual parting of the ways, as rare as that term is, to actually come to fruition.
Yeah, I've always said I really like Mike Young as a person. I think he's incredible. But as a coach, it feels like things have maybe grown a little stale in Blacksburg. The last few years, my expectations have been pretty high for Virginia Tech, especially last year when they brought in Neo of Dallas, who was their best recruit since Dorian Finney-Smith, and they just did not meet expectations. Granted, there was a lot of injuries last year, so that kind of held them back. But it's getting to the point where things just have kind of grown stagnant in Blacksburg almost. I feel like change is almost necessary to take the next step as a program. Mike Young's done a great job, obviously won the ACC tournament a few years ago with them. I'm sure Blacksburg will forever be eternally grateful for that. But it does feel like we're coming to a time where both sides just feel it's best to move on.
I'll also say this, and I don't know if you grasp the sentiment in Blacksburg, but personality-wise, when Seth Greenberg and Buzz Williams departed, I don't think there was a lot of, both of them produced, but neither one of them, I think, personality-wise, created the level of, we love these coaches, and therefore, I think there's an element of, wow, we got that out of the way, at least the maintenance part of keeping those people happy. Mike Young is not that type of guy, and he delivered results before the game totally changed on him, and frankly, on Virginia Tech, where they don't have the bottomless pit of money. They're not in a Power 2 conference where they can devote resources to non-revenue generating sports because they have so much coming in from football right now. Think Kentucky women's basketball as an example. It's a loss. It's a loser financially, but they make so much off men's basketball and football that they can overcome that. Tech isn't that. And so the game has also changed on Mike Young, where to me it looks like he's doing the best he can, but you're fighting a much harder battle than, let's just compare in Commonwealth, Virginia, where the pockets are deeper, basketball is more of a priority, and they're utilizing those deeper pockets to be more competitive in other sports.
Yeah, he was absolutely beloved at Virginia Tech, or still is, rather. I mean, he hasn't left yet. I'm just thinking back to those nights at Castle when they're announcing the starting lineups, and the loudest cheer you could hear was when they say head coach Mike Young. So everyone's very thankful for what he's done. He still has time to give, but like you said, it's hard to keep up with an ever-evolving game, and it just feels like Mike Young kind of got the short end of the stick regarding NIL and just the way the game has changed entirely.
You know, I don't get the dates right on this, but this could be a scenario where we're in late February and Tech is, I'm just going to throw a number out there, 6-10 in ACC play. I don't know how many more games they'd have left. We'll get the schedules out whenever they come. I think they'd have 4 more left. Late February, early March. And at that point, Mike Young recognizes this, so does Tech. And, he legitimately says, it's time to hang it up. And they can get a little farewell tour for him the last game or two at Castle Coliseum to appreciate his time there. And I think he's the type of coach where if that happens, the players will still play hard for him because they genuinely like him. And again, a lot of this in Blacksburg is the resources have shifted to football, and that's been enhanced and exacerbated even more with the arrival of James Franklin, which, again, that's a necessary thing for Virginia Tech. Again, to contextualize Virginia Tech and the amount of resources and how they're viewing football, Notre Dame struggled to keep, I think it's Marcus Burton who transferred from Notre Dame to Indiana in basketball. Notre Dame, they've got their own football contract with a network TV partner, NBC and Peacock, and they are prioritizing football, meaning they're not pumping the same resources into basketball that the top ACC programs are. So it's not just Tech. If you think it's in Blacksburg where football is a priority and other sports may have to, be balling on a budget, so to speak, it's across college sports. Now, somebody who's got familiarity with this, particularly from the college sports angle, he has had a chance to speak, much like we did at the ACC kickoff. He's had a chance to speak on his podcast with James Franklin, Virginia Tech head football coach. He's familiar with that. He's familiar with Notre Dame. He could critique our comparison or not. Josh Pate from ESPN and On3 is generous enough to join us here in the Fast Lane. Josh, glad to be speaking with you. I don't know how much of our prior conversation that you caught, but for schools even like Notre Dame and certainly Virginia Tech that are not in those big 2 conferences where there's so much money that can fund all the sports, they have to approach football as the moneymaker and the investment, and the others may suffer in areas, but football being a priority can still buoy them until we get some resolution on wherever college football is going. How wrong or right is that observation?
Well, It is accurate. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to like it or love it, or I guess we have to tolerate it. I think also, to go back a couple of years, I guess it's been a couple of years now, when the predominant story this time of year in this sport was this avalanche of college realignment that we thought was coming, or conference realignment that we thought was coming. And, that kind of died down, but it didn't die. It just kind of got put on simmer. It kind of got put on the back burner for a little while. And I think the one lesson that I've sort of taken away, as the rest of the world has been talking about potential Senate bills and whatnot, there was baked into the language of those Senate bills, whether it passes or not, there was baked into that bill language about capping conference size. And the second that even got whispered, I think the future of realignment, if it's going to happen, got kicked into overdrive behind the scenes. That's actually more the conversation that I've heard than the Senate bill itself over the past couple of weeks, which is interesting when you talk about a Virginia Tech or a Virginia or a North Carolina or a Miami, Notre Dame, Florida State, and whatever. I say all that to say, I think it's foolish if someone thinks there's just this one grand design out there. There's this one playbook that slowly is playing out before our eyes. Really what it is there are some decision makers that may have a little bit better guided knowledge of where things may head, but everything's up in the air. And when I say everything's up in the air, I mean really at the top levels of this thing, everything's up in the air. So when I talk about what you're asking about, which is haves and have-nots, conference supremacy, resources, revenue sharing, and all that, I don't speak about it in sort of a fixed model perspective. I speak about it as if we're all in a pinball game, and the things the way they look today are very unlikely to look that way 2 years from now. So I just never try and cement myself in on opinion on that.
Josh Pate with us here in the Fast Lane from ESPN and On3. Josh Pate's college football show. You're familiar with that, as you should be, with the great college football insight that he brings there. Josh, Senate bills. You mentioned that Protect College Sports Act. That's the biggest one. Is this stalled because it's really in the SEC and Big Ten's eyes? They view this as the Protect Our Best Interest Act, and if it doesn't align with that, it ain't happening.
Basically, yeah. I think also, I've talked to several people sort of on both sides of that proverbial aisle, and I think there was a feeling, you can call it misguided if you want, but there may have been a feeling at the outset that the SEC and the Big Ten really wanted this to pass. And the reason is because they said, we do want this. Now we got to get it framed in a certain way, but we want this. And I think as the time is drawn near here in the past week, look, I mean, it really boiled down to a few specifics, and those specifics are boring and you don't have to waste people's time with it. But the Senate and the people that are framing that bill thought they had gone above and beyond to close any loophole and address any concern the SEC and the Big Ten had, to the point where they said, all right, we fixed it for you. Go ahead, get your presidents to vote on it so we can move forward. And they fully expected a green check mark from the SEC and the Big Ten. And when they didn't get it, that is sort of when the curtain dropped a little bit, I think, and sort of when the wool got pulled off the eyes of a lot of the folks maybe over on the political side of things, the Senate side of things, who thought, wait a second, have they just been dragging their feet the whole time to run the clock out because they wanted this thing sabotaged from the get-go? Did they ever really want a solution, even though they cried that they wanted one? That's kind of where things are right now, and who knows what could happen at the 11th hour. I'm very skeptical that anything can happen, because I think everything that can be done to get those signatures or to get those endorsements has been done. And I think really at the 11th hour, what you've realized as the masks have come off is there are a lot of people in the Big Ten and the SEC who don't want this thing to see the light of day and don't want it to have any oxygen. Now, the obvious follow-up there is, well, all right, if you guys don't want this, what's your solution? And that, to me, is the next great chapter of this whole thing that hopefully gets drowned out once the games start, because I'm tired of talking about it, and I think most people are. But it's an evergreen statement to end up any one of these answers I ever give, and that is, who knows what's coming for the future of college athletics?
If you had to peg what the reason is why the SEC and the Big Ten maybe never wanted this bill in the first place, is it because they're fine with the status quo, or Is it because their elite members don't want anything capped on potential realignment because they may be eyeing their own version of a breakaway in 2030 when people think it could happen, where they could grab even a larger piece of the pie and freeze the others out?
I think there are elements of truth to everything you just said. You got to remember, even when you say Big Ten or even when you say SEC, it's not a monolith. These are several member institutions, and I can assure you Ohio State and Purdue share different worldviews, even though they both have a Big Ten patch on their chest. I think really at the beginning of all this, they took it as a slap in the face that they thought the Senate bill kind of took direct aim at them. But then again, if you're trying to flatten college athletics a little bit, any kind of bill that purports to do that is going to flatten the tops of the tallest mountains. And that is the top of the tallest mountain, Big Ten and SEC. And then I think as we went down the road a little ways, there was another word, autonomy, that kept getting thrown to me. And it's the same reason that people yell, I want a commissioner. Why can't we have a commissioner? Well, that's the word. That's the reason. Autonomy is the reason why. Because you've got a couple of really, really big entities there that have autonomy that would have to voluntarily give it up at the end of the day. And I just don't think they're willing to do it. And it's not that, the thing I struggle with is I wanted this. I still want it. I want what's in the best interest of college football, more so than I care about what's in the best interest of the SEC and the Big Ten. But then if someone asks me, well, what would you do if you were Greg Sankey? What would you do if you were Tony Petitti? Well, if my job was to look out for the best interest of those conferences, I'm not sure I'd do anything different than they're doing right now, which is where you get this big conflict of interest and these conscious checks, so to speak, every now and then. And it's where I wish we kind of had more centralized authority, so I didn't have to live in a world where everyone's looking out for the man in the mirror.
Pivoting off of all of that with Josh Pate CFB on Twitter and Instagram. He's with ESPN and On3 Sports. And of course, the Josh Pate's college football show. We're at Fastlane, Headlane on the socials and however you consume podcasts. Josh, Virginia Tech, one of their initial thoughts is resources, program structure, and setup. Like us, you've had a chance to speak with James Franklin since he has gotten to Blacksburg. What are your takeaways from how equipped he is to have what he needs to carry out his vision of getting Virginia Tech back to where they were at the height of the Frank Beamer era, which in this era might translate to some deep runs in the college football playoff?
Yeah, I've known James Franklin for quite a while, and I know him plenty well enough to know he's not taking that job unless all those questions are already answered and all those assurances are already there, as much as they can be. And I think, he's not coached a game yet, and already you feel that energy around there. You feel that positive momentum. Well, it's not just make-believe. It's a lot of juice being injected into the program that's missed. It's been missed for a long time. I remember going down there over the last couple of years. Like, I'd go see Brent Pry there. Brent knew what the problems were. Now, he wasn't able to solve them, but Brent knew what the problems were. The lack of ability to lock down in-state recruiting or even be much of a factor in recruiting there in-state was mind-boggling to people like me, because I'd watch anywhere from Penn State to Ohio State to even South Carolina because of Beamer's attachment to Virginia. I'd watch them go in there and have better success in Virginia than Virginia Tech, which, to a kid who grew up in the early 2000s, did not compute. And so I think James also, there's a little bit of a misnomer. I'm sure he's probably echoed this with a few people up there. There's this misnomer that they were loaded at Penn State. And they had everything they needed to compete against Ohio State, Michigan, in terms of spend, in terms of resource. And I think only at the very end of his time there did they really come to the table the way they needed to. Because I'm very familiar with a lot of what their payroll, so to speak, was against the likes of an Ohio State or even a Notre Dame, and it was fractional. And so if you can get him in that ballpark, you don't have to spend penny for penny with Miami. Because if you trust your eval and you trust your development and you trust your culture, and he'll put a good one in up there in all phases, you just need to get on the same green. You need to get within a 9-iron. And at that point, you let the chips fall where they may, because in any event, either one of those scenarios is better than what you've been dealing with lately.
Josh, the other side of the Commonwealth of Virginia features the Virginia Cavaliers. You have your finger on the pulse of college football on a broader level nationally, what level of frustration is there amongst Clemson people when they look at Virginia and go, Virginia is the school that has the Clemson culture and has, frankly, no offense to Clemson, but harder academic standards, yet they're embracing modern college football with the cultural component, and Clemson is not. Does Clemson look at Virginia and go, wait a second, how are they doing it that way and we're not?
This is a brilliant question. You're the first one who has posed this to me on any show I've done. I don't think most people pick up on what you're putting down there. You're spot on. It is something I've heard from Clemson fans, and not just about what Tony's doing at Virginia, but specifically about Tony at Virginia because of the obvious tie back to Clemson. Yes. All right. And philosophically, I've talked to Dabo Swinney about this. And there is such a conflict in my own mind when it comes to this topic, because on one hand, I've got so much respect for a guy who defines his principles and values and then adheres to them even when they're not popular. I respect that just as a concept. However, on this specific topic, Dabo very, very rigid about his worldview of talent acquisition and the way to run a college football program. And I told him, and I've said on the show probably 24 times, I got no problem with them defining what a Clemson Tiger is, or the way you're going to run that program and the principles and values with which you're going to run the program. I've just always found it very foolish to assume the only place you could find a player that fits that description is in high school. You're never going to convince me that out of the hundreds or now thousands of kids who are in the portal every year, that there aren't a few of them that check all those boxes and also check the athletic capability box that it would take to go to Clemson. And, they dipped their toe in the water here this past cycle, but Virginia, it's a case study. And it's something that I can assure you, even though it may not be a national radar, first take or get up topic on Monday morning on an ESPN platform, it is very much realized by the people who pay attention to Clemson football hardcore.
Josh Pate, CFB, Twitter and Instagram. Josh Pate's college football show. You're familiar with that. He's with On3 and ESPN, and generous enough to join us in the fast lane. Josh, we'll wrap it up on this one. How do you project the season opener, much less the entire season, for rivals in Liberty and JMU in our backyard who are playing their opener in week one, given the amount of roster turnover annually at all of those levels?
I don't think it's possible. I remember last year talking to a G5 head coach, and I remember asking that very question. It was Dan Mullen, actually. I was trying to remember who it was. So Dan Mullen had just taken over UNLV, and I was asking, and he was, I think we were there in like January, February. So he was pretty new on the job. And I was asking him, how many players on your roster do you know? How many of the head coaches in this league could you name? And it was like kind of up in the air. And I said, you just brought in, I think they brought in like 50 or 60 new players. How could you know what to expect? And he was honest. He said, I can't. And I've probably got the least firm grip on what to reasonably expect from this group as I ever have any team I've ever coached. But at the same time, that's not always a negative. Sometimes that's a positive. If you're worth your salt, that means you can exceed expectation. I think that's how, Billy, for example, has to think at JMU. And it's also a gut check for Billy Napier. Mike Norvell, a year from now, may be in this situation. If they don't get it done at FSU, he may have landed at maybe like a G6 level head coaching job, and you're trying to reinvent yourself a little bit. And you've done the interviews, and you've made the admissions of guilt of what you should have done different. Well, okay, you didn't retire. You got yourself another opportunity here. And so outside of all the difficulty and expectation, you also watch a guy like Billy Napier as an example, and you say, all right, well, let's start to see how much he meant with all of those admissions. Let's start to see what looks different now versus the latter tenure at Florida.
That is a topic that is a great cliffhanger, because we could address that another time. College football, coaching carousel, and potential bounce backs like at JMU with Billy Napier. Josh Pate with us in the Fast Lane. We're at Fast Lane Ed Lane on our socials, and however you listen to podcasts. He's at Josh Pate CFB on his and Josh Pate's college football show. Josh, thank you for your time today in the Fast Lane. We are glad we were able to connect. And selfishly, I can now say that my trip to New York, where I met you a couple of weeks ago, was a legitimate business trip.
Hey, we had fun time up there, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Our pleasure. Josh Pate with us here in the Fast Lane to wrap up our chat with him. Meanwhile, that same conversation of what to expect in week 1, Liberty and JMU, we will get that perspective, plus a lot of faith talk on a Faith Friday segment with Liberty Flames head football coach Jamie Chadwell next here in the Fast Lane.
Learning for your family isn't just a school year thing. This summer, teach smart money habits that last a lifetime. Open a youth or basic savings account at Farmers Bank and help build a strong financial future from the start. It's simple, safe, and a great way to turn small savings into big opportunities. Stop by our Timberlake Road location or any Farmers Bank branch and open an account today, because good habits start early, and we're here to help them grow.
Lunchtime just got an upgrade. Stop by Macadoo for our $8.95 weekday special and grab a legendary sandwich at an unbeatable price. Choose from your favorite classics to Coney Island, Betty Bop, Ragtime, or Stogie. Classic sandwiches packed with savory meats and flavors in between fresh bread. Make it a meal by pairing your sandwich with a sidekick, a warm cup of soup, or crispy chips. Great food, cozy vibes, and the best deal in town.
It's time to share great food and fun. Just to be there, the only one. Just to be there at Macadoo's.
We'll see you at the Do's.
Every Saturday night, after the Hill City Howlers play ball at City Stadium, the best fireworks in the region light up the Lynchburg sky. It's the perfect way to end a perfect night. Baseball, family, and a show you won't forget. Get your tickets now at hchowlers.com. That's hchowlers.com. Howl out loud.
Tired of juggling 5 different numbers for your home's essential systems? Concord Mechanical is your true one-stop shop. From high-efficiency equipment sales and precision installation to proactive maintenance and emergency repairs, the Concord Mechanical will handle it all. Whether you're upgrading your HVAC, fixing a water heater, or seeking seasonal tuning, their expert technicians deliver seamless service under one roof. Save time, eliminate stress, and keep your home running perfectly year-round. Call today or visit theconcordmechanical.com to schedule your service.
Hey y'all, Mike Burnip here. Start jumping. This is your home for the Hokies. VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM, and the VTRN Sports app.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at JJ Hendrickson 27 and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
So we know a lot about the health situation for Liberty Flames head football coach Jamie Chadwell, as that's been covered throughout this offseason, and its impact on him and on the Flames, and obviously the optimism for the energy level this upcoming season. We can get to that more in a moment in the Fast Lane, but we have debuted over the last probably 6 months or so a segment called Faith Fridays, where, and we may change it to Faith Focus so that we can move it to other days just to be fully transparent, but right now it's on Fridays, so we're going Faith Fridays, where we can touch on sports, but also how Christian faith weaves into the sports journey. So we are pleased to be speaking with Liberty Flames head football coach Jamie Chadwell, who is generous enough to join us in the Fast Lane. Jamie, first of all, we appreciate your time and willingness to join us for this particular segment. Wanted to start off asking you, the last 6 months of coming out and trying to bounce back from your health scare, but really the last 2 years dealing with your health challenges. How has that impacted your Christian faith and your walk with Jesus?
Well, it is great to be back on with you. First, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. I believe anytime you go through an enormous challenge, your faith gets tested on that, and the thing that I love about that is if you read the Bible, Jesus got tested all throughout his ministry, right? He went through some challenging times as well. And I'm a big firm believer that what you go through, he gives you everything you need to get through it. He's the one carrying you through it, but also it draws you closer to him. And I can share with you when I was immediately after my surgery, and there was a dark period there. The only thing I had was the faith and the hope that better days were coming. And so that drew me nearer to him. And really realized also that everything I have is because of him. And so just I got completely rely on him and who he is as far as my walk with him.
How much more? I mean, not that you don't pray and you're not into the word and studying the Bible. How much more into that were you going through that challenge and really leaning on that for guidance and inspiration?
Well, I think what you realize when you go through anything, but let alone something as challenging as that I went through. I don't know if you're studying more or anything like that. You hopefully have your routine, which I do. But I think you really start looking at the things you do take for granted daily. And I would tell you, I think that's the thing that what I've learned through this is, hey, I was taking a lot of things for granted that were blessings, and I didn't realize that, just as you go through your normal day to day. And so what it's helped me do is be thankful and grateful for all the little things, the ups and downs and the challenges and the people that care about you and the people that don't care about you. You learn a lot through that. And that to me is more than anything I would share that I've learned every day. Hey, it is a blessing, and don't take for granted that opportunity to wake up, because there for a while, you just assume it's going to happen, when you go through something that was really, really hard, you don't know, you don't know if you're going to be able to overcome it. Just living that blessing out every day that you get to breathe and live in this country. That's the thing that I've learned a lot through the challenges over the last several months.
Jamie Chadwell with us on a Faith Fridays segment here in the Fast Lane. Liberty Flames head football coach with us today. Jamie, you mentioned things that you have learned. Some people, when that type of adversity hits, that's what brings them to Christ and a Christian faith. For others, they strengthen it because they've had a base of faith that has been developed over the years. What's the origin story for you and your faith that kind of laid that foundation so that when adversity hits, including with your health situation recently, but at other points in life as well, that you've always been able to go, all right, this is where it began. This is where I can fall back.
Yeah, I would tell you my testimony. Now, I grew up in going to church. My grandmother was the organist for our church for 30 plus years. So we were there, if that made sense. But growing up, it was always about rules and not the personal relationship. I was saved when I was 14 at a centrifuge rally in Panama City, Florida. But I would tell you, I really didn't start living and making Jesus the priority. He was like my friend, but he wasn't my best friend. You got a best friend, you do everything with that best friend. You share everything with that best friend. You got friends, you do certain things with them, maybe not all things. And so he was never really my best friend. When I was a sophomore in college, my third year of college, I had the opportunity to be a starting quarterback 2 weeks before the season. Where our last scrimmage, I broke my tibia and fractured my ankle. And so everything that I dreamed about and worked hard for was taken away. And what I learned there, Ed, was my foundation was built on sand. And in Matthew 7, Jesus says that if you build anything on sand, when the rains and the storms and the trials come, it'll fall, and the fall will be great. And I had a great fall when I was laying in that hospital bed after that surgery, because everything I thought that was my path and everything I thought I deserved was taken away or was gone. And so at that point is when I really said, hey, all right, I'm going to build this on my rock. No more. I'm going to do this, but not give you this. I'm going to give you everything. And that's allowed me through the rest. I was probably 20 years old at that time. So I'm 49 now. I know look way younger, Ed. You can tell your audience that, but that's when I like, hey, I'm living for you. I'm no more giving you something and let me keep something. I'm gonna do everything I can to follow you and be in your will for my life. And so there's been ups and downs through that time frame. And this obviously went through recently was another down. And I've had several of those, 3 kids, two of them had a lot of surgeries when they were born. One had 11 surgeries before 4 years old, and so there's a lot of different challenges that my family's had to go through. But that going through what I went through when I was in college there and that adversity I faced, realized, hey, my faith has to be rock solid. I can't build this foundation on anything but Jesus Christ. And since then, like I said, it's been a great journey. Been ups and downs, a lot of trials, but it's been worthwhile.
Jamie Chabal with us here in the Fast Lane, Liberty Flames head football coach, stopping by with us. There also are the stories of the bounce backs. You know, it's not just all adversity when it comes to your Christian faith. Sometimes that paves the way for opportunities going forward. You've referenced in this offseason having a renewed level of energy as we get ready for the 2026 season. Camp will begin in the next week or so, and the season opener is a month and change away up at JMU. More on that in a moment. How have you turned to the Bible and looked at those scripture stories where sometimes people get knocked down, but they bounce back, and then you're able to use that as inspiration for how you keep plugging along, knowing that there is a reward that awaits?
There is, and it's I do a daily devotion. I do it in the morning. I'm actually on the book of Job right now, and so as you know, Job goes through a lot of different trials and tribulations. And what I realized with that is I'm not went through near as much as Job, but Job was steadfast and was true to God and trusted God and never cursed God. And there was times, Ed, I'll be honest, you're laying there with what you're going through and go, why am I going through this? And that's okay to ask him that. I think he wants you to be real, and I was, but I do know there's a great purpose of why I went through that. I don't know what that'll mean from as far as the football season. What I am thankful about, though, is last 2 years was a struggle internally because I wasn't right, and I knew it, and we couldn't figure out why. And so you're battling the stressors of the season, wanting to put your best foot forward, but also knowing that something's wrong. And and you take football away from that, and you start thinking about, hey, what am I doing for my family as far as being able to be a dad and a husband, be around, be a son and a brother, and all those things. There was a lot over the last 2 years that was challenging, and so you can go back on Bibles and stories and the parables that God gives. But I think it's been apropos that I'm in Job and just talking about all the different things that he went through, obviously to see how true he was to his faith and steadfast. And so it's a great example for me is just no matter what you're going through, continue to trust God's plan and will for your life, and good things will happen, whatever that looks like. I hope I hope that's a health thing and for me, and that what I went through is not going to come back, that we've taken care of it. And I hope as well that I can be a great example for the young men in our program as far as seeing adversity and facing it and overcoming it and working hard toward, being the best version of yourself every day.
When you mentioned the young men in your program, Liberty's a faith-based school. I would presume most players you recruit are pretty aware of that when you're contacting them, whether it's high school or in the transfer era. But there's more transition from year to year with rosters. How do you still work to connect with them on a spiritual and a faith-based level, in addition to trying to connect with them, obviously, on the job that everyone's trying to accomplish of winning games?
Yeah, and it's harder now than ever just because there is a transition, and we have 55 new players this year, and that's about 3 years in a row that we've had over 50 players new in the season. And so anything that you do to build that spiritual foundation, you're really starting over with the majority of your team. But you have to be deliberate about the connections, but also you have to let them know where you stand and what's important to you. And you have to always lead with the spiritual foundation and how this helps us as people, helps us as life, but also how this can help us on a football field. And, you got 105 people on your team. There's some that are on fire. There's some that are growing and learning. There's some that really don't care. It's probably like a typical church. And so, we view it as the opportunity. This might be the only time that they get the opportunity to hear the gospel and see it lived out. And so we talk with our coaches a lot. We got to be great examples. They're going to follow our actions, not our words. And so we need to make sure we're acting the way Jesus calls us to live out our faith, and we're not perfect. We script on that as well, but I think they want to see genuineness and sincerity. Most young people that aren't involved with the church, the reason why is, there's hypocrites, right? They go to that old adage. And so we want to make sure that we're not hypocrites, that we're living our faith out. We're walking the walk, talking the talk as well, but the walk and walk is so important. But we want to make sure they understand that they're loved and that Jesus Christ, I tell them all the time, hey, Jesus brought you here for a purpose. I believe that. And so hopefully it's the opportunity to get to know him on a personal level, accept him as your Lord and Savior. And then on top of that, hopefully he wants us to do really, really well and you really, really well in the sport you chose to play here. So hopefully it goes hand in hand.
I feel like I can ask this question of Liberty football coach Jamie Chadwell because now I have come on the other side of being a college student to now being a husband, a dad, somebody who has seen this. What parallels are there with coaching players and being a parent? You're a parent of 3. I'm a parent of 2 8-year-old boys, so we're not quite there yet in our house. Of understanding that you may be laying the groundwork with your athletes on spiritual development and some of the lessons that might finally, I'll use air quotes, click with them may not happen while you're there. Certainly you want it from a football sense because the job is to win games, but on a spiritual sense, some of those things may not happen while you're there, but it's part of the mission of Liberty is doing the best you can, knowing that some of it's in God's control when they may not be around you.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest challenge because, as a coach, you hope you're impacting young people for eternity to help live a life of significance. And the challenge of coaching is you never know if what you do, what you say, the values you hopefully you're in. So you never know if they take, right? You hope they take. You see some guys completely change. In my 3 going on 4 years here, I've seen some guys that came in that are still here that have really made a great turnaround. And I know that's not necessarily because of us, but I know it's because they've been in this environment and they've been around people that have cared for them and they've went from a 180. Most young people that are in college football don't trust. They don't trust men, to be honest with you. They don't. And so you have to build that trust through consistency and through giving hope and through love. And so you hope those are foundations. It's the same thing with your own children. You hope you're doing that for 18 years and they leave your house. You hope when they leave and they're under you want to see, hopefully they live out the values. You don't know that. You hope so. It's no different. The thing is that you give yourself as a coach. What I do is, hey, it's our job. It's our job to get them to the water. God's got to make them drink it, but we got to make sure that we get them to the water. And if we get them to the water, I feel like we've done our job to give them that opportunity to drink it. And then hopefully God moves in their heart, and that's what they do. And they choose this is who I'm going to build my foundation on for the rest of my life, not something that'll cause a big fall, drugs, alcohol, you name it, chasing money, whatever it may be. We hope that we've lived out an example for them. That's what it's heard. We've lived out an example. They've seen us, and hopefully it takes at some point fast. Some it does here. Some, maybe it takes a long time, but eventually I'll have the opportunity, to accept them. And that's what we hope we at least give them the foundation to do that.
In the NFL, there are certified agents. In college, there are agents. And then I'll use air quotes for the visuals at Fastlane, Headlane, and VTRN Sports. Agents, meaning you can use your own imagination on how serious and legitimate they are. How do you go about vetting that? Particularly, I'd imagine conversations are almost ongoing always, especially if it's an agent that just has a lot of people they represent in college. How do you develop that rapport with them, in particular, those type of people that are more prevalent of understanding cultural fits for your program and how that might be different from a cultural fit for a non-faith-based university?
Yeah, I think that's very challenging just because, you have a short window. You have a short window, the way the portal works. You have a short window to get to know somebody and to see if they're obviously a good fit for your university and also fill your roster out, right? Because it's not like there's just unlimited people out there that are, that you can get that are good enough to hopefully come in your program and help you be successful. You got to rely on hopefully coaching contacts. You're on high school coaches. Maybe it's where we've had the most success bringing somebody in is we've had a prior relationship. We've got to recruit a kid before he didn't choose us out of high school, but maybe he wants to come back because he had a good relationship, and you have a good understanding of knowing, hey, I know this kid, he'll be a good fit for your program. The biggest challenge is when you don't know a lot about them, but you still have to have the need, and you lay out what your values are. Hey, this is what the standards are, and you're trusting that they want to be a part of that. And you're also, but maybe they just won't. Maybe you're just the highest bidder too, and you don't know. I mean, that's the thing with some of the you don't know. The agents, some of them do a great job. Some are just out to take advantage of young people, and it's hard to know who's who without everybody being certified. And so I think that's a big challenge, especially at our level, because, we're the minor league, we're the farm system. So we're turning over more players every year than most of your P4 conferences, right? All the G6 is turning over a lot, majority of those, especially in our conference. We're turning over a lot of people every year. And so I think that makes it even a lot harder, especially when you're at a Christian university trying to find that right fit and saying, hey, this is who we are, this is what we're about. When maybe they don't care about that. They just care about, hey, I want to come in and play, and I don't care about those things. And so we got to do a really good job of finding kids that want to be a part of that.
We're wrapping up on this one with Liberty Flames head football coach Jamie Chadwell, who's with us here for a Faith Friday segment. How much does that put the onus on you with your coaching staff to have the right coaching staff, the right support staff, the staff members that are all behind the scenes around the program, from nutritionists to evaluation, having those type of people in place that are on board with where your values are, because you don't know what you're getting out of the players, so you need to have a little more cohesiveness everywhere else?
Yeah, that's vital. I mean, the consistency of the messaging is vital, and that's been, I think, has been hard to keep, making sure guys understand, coaches support everybody. Hey, this is who we are. This is what we're about. This is how we're going to do things, and making sure that it's not just lip service, because young people, they're trying to find, you probably know this with your 8-year-old boys, they ask mom something and they don't get their answer. They don't come ask dad, right? And so it's no different with 18 to 21. They're going to try to find somebody, whether that's athletic training, whether that's strength, whether that's the coordinator on the defensive or offensive side of the ball, whether that's nutrition. They want to find somebody that will allow them not to be held to the standard. That's just nature. And so it's why it's vital that everybody's on the same page as far as sharing the beliefs you have, believing in the values you have, and protecting your culture. Everybody's job here, as far as coaching wise, staff wise, is to protect their culture and make sure we're watering those roots every day. Because if we don't, there's going to be some weeds that pop up. And I think more than ever, because of the turnover with your players, it's vital that everybody's on the same page. And typically, that's been a big advantage for us in the past, as everybody has been. Maybe not as much as we needed to be in a year past, especially with the challenges I was going through. That's when even more you have to make sure on the same page.
Jamie Chadwell, Liberty Flames head football coach, with us here in the Fast Lane, and painting a bleak picture that it's not going to get easier on parenting my kids as they get older. We say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek. Jamie, thank you for your time today in the Fast Lane. The only bad news is that we're so close to football season, you're going to have to see a lot more of me for the next few months. And for that, I extend my apologies and ask for your forgiveness.
Well, I can tell you what I went through. I was even looking forward to seeing you again. So that tells you how bad it was.
Wow. It really must have been bad. If I'm a bright spot, whoo, I don't want to know what the details about that health scare. Jamie Chadwell with us in the Fast Lane. Jamie, thank you for your time. We will see you again in the next week or so in person this time.
Sounds good. Thank you. God bless.
Our pleasure. Jamie Chadwell with us here on our Faith Fridays edition of the Fast Lane. When we return, going south in the NFC South. We explained that. Plus, you know what the comeback is? It's, I don't know about his job future. We'll explain when we return in the Fast Lane.
Mark Dalton here with the Terry Auto Group. If you don't love your car, then you're simply just driving the wrong one. At Terry Volkswagen, Terry Subaru, Terry Auto Outlet, and the Terry Clearance Center, we've got the perfect new or used car for you. We make your car buying experience easy. Need help with imperfect credit? No problem. Our team works hard to get you approved and back on the road. Because when you shop at Terry, you drive away happy. Visit us at any of our 4 locations or online at terryautogroup.com. Terry Auto Group. You'll love our cars.
Big transitions feel like big hurdles. That's why Central Virginia Counseling has 2 dynamic 6-week summer groups for rising 6th and 9th graders packed with essential life skills. Each week targets a new skill for success, tools like organization, time management, task initiation, anxiety reduction techniques, and skills for making friends and communicating well. Through peer connection and expert guidance, students will gain tools to feel capable, connected, and ready for day one. Visit us on Timberlake Road or Wigington Road in Lynchburg, or at centralvirginiacounseling.com to learn more.
When shopping for auto liability insurance, it's wise to consider the best policy, not the cheapest. Hi, I'm Randy Trost with Trost Law. It's crucial to have more than the minimum insurance on your auto liability policy. This protects you if you injure someone or if someone without proper insurance hurts you. Having the right policy ensures you have sufficient underinsured coverage to take care of you and your family. To learn more how we can help you navigate these challenges, visit us at trostlaw.com. That's trostlaw.com.
End zone, light them up, touchdown Liberty.
The atmosphere at a game is amazing. It is like family.
I've been a season ticket holder for 14 seasons. The atmosphere is electric.
On the near sideline.
It's an experience. You look forward to every week. I like the pageantry, the band.
The pride of knowing that this is our university.
2026 Flames football season tickets are on sale now. Get yours at lufootball.com.
Come join the chat or give us a piece of your mind. JJ Hendrickson 27 and Fastlane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
It's going south in the NFC South. What do we mean? Find out now in
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kinda ish. Let's start with number 5.
Let's also start with the good news for him and maybe for the team. Chris Olave, New Orleans Saints wide receiver, and the franchise agreed to a new 4-year contract extension. Good for him. Fantastic. We bring that up to get that out of the way. Everything else that seems to be coming out of the NFC South is one giant caution flag. Look, I may be one who likes to, how shall I say this, dabble in sports-related projections. Read into that what you will. For fun, recreational, you've got to be judicious about that. If it's a challenge, please back away. We're not saying you have to do this to not have fun. How do you predict the NFC South right now, JJ?
I really don't know anymore, Ed. I mean, there's so many question marks with so many contract negotiations still to happen.
And injuries.
I would lean Tampa Bay right now if I had to pick, but even that, I don't feel super confident about.
I don't either. So let's run this down because the Panthers are in there. There are plenty of Carolina fans in our area. Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield wanted a new contract. He says they're not going to negotiate now in camp. I think they want him paid closer to like 35, 40 million a year. He wants above 50 million, which I get. Even mediocre quarterbacks get that. But I don't know if I feel comfortable with that, especially considering we kind of know what he is at quarterback. Meanwhile, Vita Vea, their defensive tackle, wants a new contract. Philly just gave one to Jalen Carter, who I think his upside is better than Vea's. But, the market continues to rise on that. The longer you wait, the more challenging it is. That's not a good look. Meanwhile, the rest of the division, not much better. The Saints, they gave Olave the extension. They've also lost Brian Brzee, the former Clemson product, torn ACL, the defensive tackle, done for the year. So they've got their question mark right there. Panthers, 2 big injuries. We mentioned Nick Scorton, the edge rusher. Chris Brazzell, the second, the wide receiver. Initially thought it was going to be an 8-week injury with the MCL. Instead, he's done for the year. So the Panthers already down for the count on 2 injuries. And if you thought the Atlanta Falcons might have all the skill position talent in the world, which they do, tight end Kyle Pitts, wideout Drake London. Their running back, Bijan Robinson, wants a new deal. I don't blame him. If you're a running back, get that money as soon as possible. There's a limited shelf life. He and Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit are examples of this. But all their quarterbacks are dealing with injuries. Michael Penix Jr. was an injury liability, so what do? Bring in the off-injured Tua, who, wait for it, is dealing with tight back, which is not something that is easily overcome. So they have added Cooper Rush. This injury is set up, this division, because of injuries and contracts, is set up to be, once again, one where you're wondering if the division winner is above 500 this year.
Yeah, this could be one of those years you have an 8 and 9 team squeak into the playoffs and actually host a home playoff game, which we've seen from the NFC South relatively recently. At the end of the day, you just got to pay some of these guys. Like Bijan Robinson, in my opinion, is the best running back in the NFL. If you're Atlanta, you cannot let him go. You've got to give that man a blank check and pay him whatever he wants. I get it's not exactly ideal to pay a running back. You're not ready to win a Super Bowl right now, but I think Bijan's talent's so good, they've got to pay him.
I agree in the sense as well, which is if you find your next quarterback, which I am skeptical he's on the Atlanta Falcons roster right now, and I'm even more skeptical that this administration is going to be making that decision. If it blows up, they may just gut the whole thing and have someone new. That's the one piece that can alleviate a rookie or a new quarterback in the early going. And there's a lot of talk of if it doesn't work out with Malik Willis, former Liberty Flame down in Miami, would Lamar Jackson want to go there? Atlanta's not far from there either and could be in the market for a quarterback. And with all the skill talent, you wonder if Jackson would want to go there in the offseason. I think ultimately Jackson will stay with the Ravens, but that looks like a potential free agent destination because the quarterback's the one question mark around all their skill talent, but it doesn't solve their problem this year. Meanwhile, speaking of problems, a victory lap potentially coming in.
Number 4.
Here it is today. CBS announced that analyst Tony Romo is on leave until further notice from his role as an analyst. Romo told the officer he was going from the golf course to his grandparents' house before he was arrested on July 23rd. To get my usher on for a moment, I must confess, I don't know where his grandparents live relative to the golf course where he had the operating while intoxicated incident. My only response to that allegation or that suggestion from Romo is, I don't know, JJ. I don't know.
Yeah, just a dreadful stretch of decisions from Tony Romo. I mean, maybe he didn't want to pay for an Uber, didn't want to take it, but that might end up being a multi-million dollar failure on his part to not take one. I mean, like you were saying, we were just talking about it at the break. This could be a logical business reason to get rid of him now. That was something they wouldn't have had before, and he gave it to them, and now he's on leave. And like with Lombardi, once you're on leave, I feel like a lot of the times you never return from that.
That's a great point, that once you're on leave, you never return. And the logical business reason, VBR, valid business reason. Tony Romo, CBS now has a valid business reason to get out of the contract. By the way, Andrew Marchand of The Athletic, I wonder if he's a listener to the Fast Lane. We appreciate them all. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, however you listen to podcasts, or the VTRN Sports app. Called it the worst contract in media history between Tony Romo and CBS. And he's one who's reported that there was an intervention a couple of years ago, no pun intended, sorry, but no pun intended, between Romo and CBS because of Romo's poor announcing and lack of progress in that area, or we could call it regressing. You got to either be, you either have an ego so large that you don't think you're that bad, or you're totally naive in reading the room. Either way, that's a problem. And Tony Romo, one of the two is the case, because if you're in that spot, you and or your agent should be aware that any potential issue with your behavior could create a problem, because most contracts have morals and ethics clauses where if you run afoul of the law or a behavioral situation arises, all of a sudden they can break the contract. You've got to be aware of that. And last but not least, with Romo, and I'm sure we'll have more chances when he's officially fired to just bring this one up once again. First of all, I'm an Eagles fan. I think Joe Buck is the best color analyst or the best broadcaster. And I think Aikman is the best color analyst in football. So as an Eagles fan, this is not an anti-Cowboy sentiment coming at Tony Romo, because I love Aikman's broadcast. I don't like Romo's, and they play for the same franchise. And one actually managed to win back when the Dallas Cowboys were.
It's looking a little bit like those Dallas Cowboys is peaking in the 90s.
As that weatherman from back in the day reminds us. You got to understand that ethics clause could easily come into play here. Either your ego is too big in your Tony Romo, or you have got a total level of naivety that's a problem. Either way, it seems like it's biting Tony Romo.
Yeah, just poor decision-making from a guy who used to play the quarterback position. I mean, you would expect so much more from him, and looks like it might end up costing him his media career. I really liked him at the beginning. He was calling all the plays, and then it just seemed he kind of, I don't know, the game kind of grew out of him. He wasn't around it as much anymore, and it really felt like his performance fell.
His style grew stale. Meanwhile,
Number 3.
pivoting off of that to basketball, JMU has released their non-conference basketball schedule. Some Liberty Flames folks are up in arms because they are not featured on it. Let me also throw this out there. The VCU and Richmond games are exhibition games for JMU. They are not meaningful regular season games. The local ties for JMU's men's basketball schedule, which we can discuss with Shane Metlin or Katie Harper Monday in the Fast Lane. Delaware, Elon, Delaware and Liberty's Conference USA. Elon geographically close, as well as William and Mary and Longwood from Virginia. So it's not as Virginia heavy as it looks if you include the two exhibitions. I'd still love to see it. They haven't played in 17 years. I think that gripe from Flames fans is legitimate. I mean, look, to me, Liberty, ODU, JMU, Richmond, VCU, to me, they're all kind of in the same boat. They're not big enough that they're counting as quad 1 wins, and they're not trashy enough to be quad 4. So they're all in that quad 2, quad 3. And Liberty's doing this with other programs, so I kind of wonder if the effort's on JMU's. I don't know. I'd love to see more of these because Why not play each other? If you're not going to be able to schedule the big boys, have the next best thing. Have some fun local rivalries.
Yeah, I'm all for having these teams play each other, Ed. I mean, who doesn't love a local rivalry, even if they don't have tension necessarily between them right now? The more you play and how close they are geographically, they're going to develop. And at the end of the day, who doesn't love watching just a spicy sports game where the teams really do not like each other? If they schedule more local games, we might just see that.
Number 2.
Speaking of local players, 3 of them have been mentioned in this series of lawsuits that are being filed for the class of 2022 basketball players who now want to be eligible this upcoming season in the 5 for 5, 5 years to play 5 years of college basketball season. The local ones are Colin Porter from Liberty, Owen Aquino, ironically, formerly from Liberty, now with High Point, and Dallin Hall from Virginia. Out of that 3 relative to their particular schools, I'm not going to comment on Aquino and High Point. I think they take them back. It seems like money's not an issue there. If you're Liberty and you have a potential roster spot open, I think you clearly welcome back Colin Porter. I mean, I don't know whether everybody would want to come back, but Porter's part of the lawsuit, so I think there's an appetite there to come back. Great kid. Everyone speaks highly of him. It could be similar to the Darius McGee in the sense of no one thought he'd be eligible to come back, so he might get 2 senior days, but you would welcome him back. I don't know, Jim. I don't know, JJ, about Dallin Hall in Virginia. I think he was good, but I think Chance Mallory is ready to take a step forward. And it seems like Virginia has done more talent upgrades from last year to this year where Hall might come back, but I don't know if he really be a desire for Virginia.
Yeah, I agree he was good, but with all this around him, I really don't know if they'd bring him back. Like you said, Liberty, I think they do need to make that move and fill that roster spot, but UVA, I just don't like it for them, and I'm skeptical if they're going to go through with it or not, honestly, overall.
Meanwhile, pivoting from that to
Number 1.
Virginia Tech Hokies announced a $1.2 million gift for track and field and cross country from the Seufer family. Martha and Paul Seufer, they are from Lynchburg, and their son, Peter, is one of the best runners ever to come out of this area. Patterson Wilhelm, who was an All-American at William & Mary, would fit that description. He was a fantastic runner as well at EC Glass. You know, I think the most raw gifted runner, he's not from the area, but to have raced in the area would be Sam Chalanga at Liberty University, who was fantastic. He ran the Chicago Marathon like 2:09. Seufer certainly is up there. I mean, all these guys are just blazing fast. God, what's his name? Donnie is his name. Donnie Cowart from VMI, ran for VMI, and is from Rustburg as well. Is a fantastic runner. There are a lot of elites in the area, but I think what's really cool about the Peter Seufer thing is their family wants to help Virginia Tech track and cross country. In that sport, $1.2 million goes a long way. Like, I'm a runner. We ain't raking in the big bucks. Like, it don't take much to bankroll a running program and to get players financial incentives to go to a particular school. This is, if you want to talk about a sport where you could recruit the best athletes with money and potentially win, cross country might be one of those opportunities because most of us pay to run the races. So if you're talking about getting paid a lot of money, I mean, that's now it may be going to other things, facilities upgrades, player scholarships, more longevity based things. But $1.2 million for a program is still, it goes a lot farther in cross country and track and field than it does in football and basketball, where it may come close to paying a quarter of a salary for a player.
Yeah, I love to see this. I mean, a cash injection like that could be potentially program changing, especially in the era of NIL when you can pay people to come to your program. I'm really excited to see what this brings for the future of Virginia Tech track and field, and who knows where it's going to go from here. Maybe they'll start competing even more on a national level with a gift like this.
You know, they've invested in a lot of their other sports. I know basketball has caught the brunt of it, but you know, women's basketball has gotten gifts. Softball has gotten gifts. Wrestling has been very well endowed in Blacksburg. I think it's hard to get past Penn State because they've had a vice grip on the number 1 spot, but if there's ever a time for Virginia Tech to challenge them, they would. So Virginia Tech actually is finding investments in other sports. It's basketball where the price tag is so high. That's the harder one, whereas, again, a mill or two can go a lot further in most of the other sports.
Yeah, I'd love to see basketball get the kind of support that the other sports are getting. But at the end of the day, the more sports that are successful, especially at Virginia Tech, I'm always going to be a supporter of and happy to see.
We appreciate your support today in the Fast Lane. That does it for us. We appreciate your time this week. If you missed anything, our Faith Fridays chat with Jamie Chadwell, Josh Payne on college football, or any of our guests from this week, or our commentary as well. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as chiming in on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We're back with covering the Commonwealth Monday in the Fast Lane.
It was that defense 2 years ago